It's currently the 6th of May at the time of recording. Novel coronavirus is inflicting itself upon cities worldwide, and the majority of countries have been placed in some sort of lockdown. For any of you time travellers watching, this means we can't leave the house, except for absolutely essential activity. Those of us that are highly introverted have been practicing this self-isolation thing for years, but a lot of people don't find it so easy. Folks are missing their friends and their families and even their partners. Right now there are no cinemas, no restaurants, and no coffee shops. In a nutshell, at the present time, people do not have their freedom. Don't mistake this for complaining, it's an absolutely vital measure. But the effects of these isolation bubbles we all find ourselves in can have some seriously negative effects, even for the most solitary of us. Fortunately, I found my remedy in the most unlikely of places. I haven't seriously played a driving game since Burnout Paradise in 2008, but The Crew 2 has its hooks in me deep, and it's not letting go anytime soon. It dropped from developer Ivory Tower in May 2018 and slipped under my radar for a while until I picked it up dirt cheap on a sale. Do not mistake this game for a Forza clone. As closely as they sit in the same genre, it's like comparing apples and oranges. Do not mistake it for another paint-by-numbers on-rails racer, and above all else, do not mistake it for another sterile Ubisoft published product. The Crew 2 has real heart. It can be inspirational and bring a smile to your face, just not how you might expect it to. Of course, the game's whole narrative premise is as cheesy as Mouldy Stilton. You make a little avatar dude and you're a new racer on the scene, whatever that means. Jump in your first car and start racing your way to the top. Not a single hair of this game's premise is original, that's for sure. The characters are completely one-dimensional, and your main sidekick, Hero, H-I-R-O, is just an annoying knob. Turn that volume slider all the way to 0 and improve your enjoyment tenfold. But come on now, no one plays racing games for the story, do they? You play them to have shitloads of fun, and this is where The Crew 2 flexes its 352 massive muscles. When I say muscles, I mean stunt planes, speedboats, hypercars, monster trucks, demolition derby bangers, racing planes, Formula 1 cars, rally cars, motocross bikes, helicopters, hovercraft, drag racers, drifting muscle cars, all-wheel drive cross-country trucks, and there's even more than that. Throw them all into this staggeringly huge and diverse recreation of the United States, and the end result is freedom personified. No, that's not a pun on the so-called America freedom. I really mean it. It's bloody colossal. The plethora of drivables are broken down into 4 families. You've got your street racers, your pro racers, your freestylers, and your off-roaders. And within each of these families is another 4 disciplines. It makes for 16 total categories of vehicle. I'm not going to go into massive detail, but each discipline has its own racing style and style of vehicle. Among my favourites are the drag racing type, literally tearing the tarmac into shreds and doing wheelies in a Corvette Stingray, with any degree of steering being my ultimate nemesis. I also have a soft spot for the hypercar discipline, not just because the cars are sleek and speedy, but because the races are long. I'm talking half an hour plus depending on the race. There's one hypercar race that goes from one coast all the way to the other coast, spans the entire map, and you can clock in over an hour in this race. In one race, you experience almost the entire array of regions the Crew 2 contains, like one very fast Grand Tour. It's a real belter. Every single vehicle is highly upgradable and customizable, and how these upgrades are obtained is a little bit weird. Loot-based mechanics seem to have found their way into races recently, and so after every race is complete, you'll get some random drops based on the length of that race. Longer races obviously offering a higher quantity of reward. I'm almost certain this is done to stretch out the playtime in the game, and as a whole, I'll admit when I first played The Crew 2 it did leave a pretty bad taste in my mouth, but once you realise the drops are literally always an improvement on the current part you have, I just see it as a free upgrade every time I finish a race. When you get to the maximum level of these parts, you can min-max a little bit with some rarer parts, but unless you're completing for world record times, you really don't need to bother with that. Parts are dropped on a per discipline basis, so streetcar parts can't be used in rally cars, for example. This means you have to race the cars that you actually want to upgrade to get the drops you need. Some will like this, others won't. I really don't mind either way. The Crew 2 is not a deep game full of intricate mechanics and systems, at least not at the level I play at. The handling is arcadey, and the difficulty of the races can be a little bit unbalanced, but still mostly entertaining. Forget about those for just a moment because I've got a better idea. Start in the middle of the map, pick a direction and just go, and I'll see you in 2 hours. Without the thinnest shadow of a doubt, the reason I will remember this game for years isn't the races I won by a millisecond or when I unlocked that glossy new Lambo. It will be remembered for completely unscripted moments like these. This open world is the best I've ever seen in a driving game, hands down, and exploring its vast reaches is pure, unadulterated joy. The entirety of the states has been modelled into this scaled down version, including the different climates and biomes that each would have to offer. Of course you've got your landmark, man-made monuments like the Golden Gate Bridge, the Empire State Building, the Statue of Liberty, and all the others you'd expect to find. You've got full cities like New York and LA, fleshed out with traffic and pedestrians alike. The real good stuff though, the parts that'll make you spend 25 minutes in the photo mode because it's all just so damn pretty, is out in the sticks. In the canyons, the bayous, the mountains, the swamps, lakes and oceans. This world is vast. It can take up to 2 hours to drive from one side of the map to the other, depending of course on what kind of car you're driving. Smashing down the straight desert roads at night, doing 260 mph in a Bugatti, or cruise around the perimeter in a swanky speedboat. Maybe you take a more direct approach and you jump into a racing plane, kissing the top of the snowy mountain peaks as you go. I prefer to carve my own route on a dirt bike or monster truck, not giving a single shit about the dense woodland or near fatal crashes of the hefty trunks. Maybe you'll find yourself climbing to the top of an icy peak. You find a secluded ski resort only to jump off the highest nearby slope so you can abuse the photo mode until your hard drive is full up of mid-air backflip snapshots. I found myself wholly enamoured with this open world and feeling entirely and absolutely unshackled from the constrictions of our real world circumstance, if only for a brief while. The first time you find the road that leads through these salt flats, I guarantee you'll veer straight off that road and start spamming donuts until your car is plastered in white. Or maybe you prefer the sand-blasted orange tones from hours of smashing the sand dunes just a little bit to the west. It is so bloody liberating to be able to go wherever the hell you please, with the only limit being how stubborn you want to be to get there. I'm not even mentioning the different weather systems. The transition between a bright sunny day and a torrential downpour can be a little bit sudden, but the atmosphere they create is really well done, especially if you play in the first-person driver view. Mud and snow become caked all over the cars and the bikes, and even the rider is spared no splattering. It affects how the car's handled too, so try not to lay down 3,500 brake horsepower of drag racing fury during a blizzard. The icing on the cake here is that even if all you're doing is sodding around in the wilderness, hopefully you'll find someone to sod around with. I've seen a lot of cool shit in this game, but if I had to name one moment, it would be this. So, players are randomly filtered in and out of each other's open world sessions, and I just stopped at the middle of the road to change vehicle. When I exited the menu, another player was right next to me, on the same bike, an off-road BMW. No words were ever exchanged, but we spent the next 45 minutes blazing a trail off-road across half the United States of America. Should I smash into a tree and fall behind, he would wait for me, and I would wait for him. We would swap to planes to cross the canyons and to our boats to traverse the rivers and lakes. It was a back and forth of follow the leader. I never did get to add him as a friend. Chances are I'll never see that guy again. But for just under an hour, we had the strongest bromance that was enabled by a pure accommodation of freedom by the game. This has to be the same sort of connection that Journey provided, if you guys remember that, where the only method of available expression was player movement. I think I get that now. I must say it does feel a little bit hyperbolic to gush about a mainstream driving game like this, but it's been such a genuinely wholesome experience that I feel compelled to share my time with it. The graphical fidelity is gorgeous enough to lose yourself in quickly, and if only for a little while, you may feel more hopeful that things will start to get better. You might even share that experience with a random internet stranger, and in a time of social isolation, where the days blur together and you haven't seen the sun for a while, it's a nice reminder that humanity is still out there, and some of those humans are actually pretty alright.